The sermons. On one famous occasion, the witch recited perfectly the sermon of Reverend James Gunn of Bethel Methodist Church, followed by the sermon of Sugfort, despite the fact that they had originally been given at the same time more than 12 miles apart. The Witch and William Porter. Family friend William Porter claimed the witch climbed into bed with him, allowing him the opportunity to seize the spirit in the bedclothes and attempted to throw it into the fire, saying only the immense weight and terrible smell of it prevented him from succeeding. The Witch and the Bell family slaves. The witch had a dislike for the family's slaves, tormenting them relentlessly, beating them, and refusing to allow them into the house. A Bell slave named Dean stated he encountered the witch several times and that it appeared frequently in the form of a large black dog or wolf, sometimes with 2 heads, sometimes with no head. Dean also claimed to be turned into a mule and attacked several times by the witch. He carried with him at all times his axe and a witch bowl made by his wife as protection from the witch's influence. The Witch and the Shakers. Visitors and neighbors were not immune from the witch's performances either. In one instance, the witch set 3 dogs, Caesar, Tige, and Bulger, on traveling shakers who never traveled by the farm again. The Silver Bullet. In another, neighbor and husband of Esther Bell, Bennett Porter fired a shot at a knotty log that had been conjured upon by the witch. She struck the bark and cut into it, but the conjuration vanished. On. Dr. Mize. In another instance, Dr. Mize, a noted conjurer from Simpson, Kentucky, came to exorcise the witch and was mocked and frightened away. Betsy Bell. John Bell Sr. and Betsy Bell seem to be the 2 most frequently abused by the witch. For reasons still unclear, the witch adamantly opposed the union of childhood sweethearts, Betsy Bell and Joshua Gardner, frequently resorting to ruthless taunts and physical abuse. Joshua and Betsy remained attached, but she put off marriage in fear of the spirit's reprisal. The witch's attacks on Betsy were not all related to her relationship with Gardner, and the constant threat of the witch began to affect her such that she became prone to fainting spells and smothering sensations, often appearing exhausted and lifeless. Her experiences were not confined to the Bell property either. Betsy later described one incident. When the spirit became so tantalizing, filling my mind with horror and causing me to become so nervous, my parents often sent me to a neighbor's to rest for a night. My first night away from home was spent with Denny Thorne. When we retired, there came a loud knocking on our outside door, which seemed to fly open, and a great gust of wind was felt. Then he sprang up at once and lit a candle. To our surprise, the door was not open. Then a voice spoke softly, "Betsy, you should not have come over here. You know I can follow you anywhere. Now get a good night's sleep." A soft hand patted my cheek, and the voice again assured us that we would not be disturbed any more that night. The rest of the family often attempted to give Betsy relief, and family friend Frank Miles promised to protect Betsy from any further abuse by the spirit. Betsy said, "Frank was the most powerful man any of us ever saw, and just as fearless as any living man. One time he said to me, 'Come sit by me, little sister. Nothing will bother you while I am here.'" The witch responded, "You go home, you can do no good here." The witch then began abusing Betsy, slapping her, pulling her hair before turning on Miles, knocking him over and enraging him. Betsy continued to endure the spirit's abuse, and after calling off the marriage to Gardner, Betsy was eventually courted by and married to her former school teacher, Richard Powell. Despite the apparent abatement of the witch's torments, in 1820, she left the area with her husband and settled in Mississippi. Ly the bent tree and bullet hole remained. Death of John Bell. One of the central goals of the Bell Witch seemed to be the death of John Bell Sr. Old Jack Bell, as the spirit called him, was blasted with curses, heinous threats, and serious physical torments. As the abuse continued to impact his psyche, Bell took to his bed and was cared for by John Jr. On December 19, 1820, John Bell failed to leave his bed, and John Jr. went to the cupboard to retrieve the medicine for his care. Instead of the 3 medicine vials, he found only 1 vial. It was 1/3 full of a dark, smoky liquid of unknown origin. The voice of the witch gloated, It's useless for you to try to relieve old Jack. I have got him this time. He will never get up from that bed again. She claimed to the vial that she gave old Jack a big dose of it last night while he was fast asleep, which fixed him. The contents of the vial were thrown into the fire and erupted into a blue blaze. John Bell died December 20th, 1820. The Bell Witch crashed the funeral, disrupting the service and singing bawdy drinking songs. Andrew Jackson. Legend has it that the Bell Witch even had an encounter with then future President Andrew Jackson. Jackson owned property on the Red River and desired to visit the Bell farm after hearing the stories. One of his wagons became stuck by an unseen force and could not be moved, despite whipping the horses, examining the wheels, and having it pushed by the men in his party. He exclaimed, "By the eternal boys, this is the witch." To which the witch replied, "All right, General, let the wagon move on. I will see you again tonight." The wagon started of its own accord and they continued on their journey. That evening at camp, a self-proclaimed witch layer or witch hunter said he had a silver bullet and regaled the men with tales of hunting witches. Jackson whispered to a colleague, "I'll bet this fellow is an arrant coward. By the eternals, I do wish the thing would come. I want to see him run." After which silence followed. Suddenly there was the sound of light footsteps prancing on the floor and the voice stated, "All right, General, I am on hand and ready for business." The witch bade the witch hunter to shoot, but the gun did not fire. The hunter was struck by an unseen force, claimed to feel the pain of being stuck by needles, exclaimed he had been grabbed by the nose, and fled from the tent. The witch exclaimed, "How the devil did run and beg, I'll bet he won't come through here again with his old horse pistol to shoot me. I guess that's fun enough for tonight, General, and you can go to bed now. I will come tomorrow night and show you another rascal in this crowd." Jackson was eager to stay, but his party had enough and Jackson returned to Nashville shortly thereafter. Kate Batts. Mary Catherine Kate Batts, d. After 1847, the wife of Frederick Batts, was believed by many to have been the culprit behind the disturbances known as the Bell Witch. Although not a poor woman, she was often mocked by others throughout the Red River settlement in Robertson County. Her improper usage of words, along with her sometimes strange ways, led many to think she was practicing black magic or other forms of the occult. In the early years of the century, Benjamin Batts, the brother of Frederick Batts, had a dispute with John Bell over the sale of a slave. Facts of the dispute were later tangled and became the source of a rumor to the effect that John Bell and Kate Batts had the quarrel and that the Bell Witch was created by Kate Batts to get revenge on Bell. While there are plenty of stories connecting the Bell Witch to Kate Batts and some sort of disagreement that existed between her and John Bell, recent evidence suggests that she had nothing to do with it. In fact, contrary to reports of her claiming that she would get even with John Bell on her deathbed, Kate Batts actually outlived John Bell by many years. Today there are many descendants of the Batts family living in Cheatham, Montgomery, and Robertson County. The Bell Witch Cave. Though it played a relatively minor role in the original Bell Witch legend of the early 19th century, the cave on John Bell's property has since become a focal point for visitors hoping to experience a bit of the haunting themselves. Added to the National Historical Registry in 2008, the cave is the only original feature from the legend that can still be seen today, largely unchanged from the way the Bell family would have seen it in 1817. Though numerous eerie events have been reported by visitors to the cave, including the renowned difficulty in taking photographs around the site in the pre-digital age, nothing on the scale of the original haunting centered around the Bell house, long since torn down, has been reported since the early 1800s. Modern myth persists. Following the death of John Bell, the witch's activity dropped off sharply. The spirit was still active through the winter and spring of 1821, but it soon bade the family farewell, telling them it would be gone for 7 years. True to its word, the family remaining on the property, Lucy, Richard Williams, and Joel, claimed the witch to return in February 1828, reappearing in much the same way it appeared the first time, with shaking beds and unexplained noises. It soon vanished again, claimed it would return to haunt the Bell descendants once again in 1935, but no other specific hauntings of the Bell family or their property on the level experienced in the early 19th century have been reported. Despite this, unexplained activity in and around the Bell farm in Adams, Tennessee, continues. Various encounters near the property, along the old Nashville-Clarksville Road, and in the famous Bell Witch Cave still draw tourists and ghost hunters to Adams. The Bell Witch has been the subject of countless modern books, analyses, documentaries, and movies, including the 2006 wide-release motion picture An American Haunting, very loosely based on the Bell Witch legend. Though the haunting of the Bell family apparently ended nearly 200 years ago, tales of the Bell Witch are as compelling in 2009 as they were in the 1819. Creepy crawlies. Lena Holmes, a model, was offered a part in a movie, and she found stardom. As is common, fame and fortune can make significant changes in a person's personality. So it was with Lena Holmes. She became difficult to work with and bullied everyone with whom she worked. Lena wanted her body from her face to her toes perfect, so she hired a chemist to create shampoo, creams for her face, her neck, her arms, and every other place where skin could be seen. Once a week, Lena went to an upscale beauty salon to have her hair shampooed by Carol, the only person she would allow near her hair. "Miss Holmes, I don't understand it. I poured some of your special shampoo on your hair, but it won't lather. It's as though I just poured water on your hair." "What?" Lena growled, jumped out of the chair, wrapped a towel around her head, rushed to her car, and drove to her chemist. When she arrived at the chemist's lab, she barged in, startling Dr. Fine. "Miss Holmes. Wha? You're a fraud. A charlatan. I paid you a fortune for this shampoo, and it doesn't lather," she screamed, pointing the bottle at his face. Lena walked back and forth in front of the chemist, who sat at his desk and watched her as she paced and ranted. "If I had a gun, I'd..." "Miss Holmes, I don't appreciate your insults or your threats. I should kick you out of here right now, but I won't. I don't know what went wrong with the formula, but I'll find out. Now, leave and don't come back." "I won't, you crook. I ought to see you," she growled and stormed out of his lab. "Miserable bitch. Spoiled brat. I want to be around when age turns her into a prune. I want to see her fall apart. Now, let's look at the shampoo," he said, and put a drop on a glass slide and looked at it through his microscope. "Interesting. One element has degraded. I can fix it," he said, went to his refrigerator and took out a jar, removed the cap, and poured about an ounce into the shampoo. Next, he went to his incubator and took out a small bottle that was filled with green liquid and went to his workplace. He held the small bottle up to the light and smiled. "I wish I could be there to see it," he said, took the cap off the bottle of shampoo, and poured the contents of the small bottle into it. Then, he screwed the cap back on the bottle of shampoo, shook it several times, and held the bottle up to the light. "Yeah, I'd love to see this." The shampoo was delivered the next morning. "Good. Just in time. I have an appointment to have my hair washed." In order to be sure that her hair was receiving the attention she demanded, she went to her exclusive beauty salon. "Miss Holmes, how nice to see you. Come with me and I'll wash your hair. Here's my shampoo, Carol," she said, and gave her the bottle. Lena sat in the shampooing chair and put her head back on the contoured sink. Carol wet her hair, poured some of Lena's shampoo on her head, and massaged her head. "Is this new shampoo? The suds are luxurious, so smooth." Carol rinsed her hair, covered her hair with a towel, and led her to a chair. "How would you like me to style your hair?" "Just take about a half-inch off the bottom." After Carol finished, she used mirrors to show Lena what she did. "Looks fine." "Thank you, Carol," she said, paid her, left the salon, and went home. It was late, so she made herself a sandwich, watched TV for a while, and then went to bed. She was very tired, so she fell right to sleep. During the night, she tossed and turned. After tossing and turning for 4 hours, she suddenly awoke, looked at her hands and sheets and blanket, and saw that they were covered with blood. "Oh, my God! What's happening?" she moaned and put her hands to her head. "My head's bleeding," she gasped and fainted. While she was unconscious, microscopic parasites, which Dr. Fine put in her shampoo, crawled through her hair, eating her hair as they went. After her hair was gone, they burrowed into her scalp. By morning, the parasites had burrowed into her scalp, eaten her brain, and moved through her body, eating as they went. Medical examiners, after they performed an autopsy and finally discovered the cause of her death, agreed that there was no way of knowing how she became a host for the parasites.